Joining us now to talk about that is immigration lawyer Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Kate, good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us on the briefing.
You bet. Happy to be here. Well,
what do you make
really
of what do you make of this?
It's so scary. This is the moment. I think a lot of people who have been watching all of this play out over the last several months have said, we know there's an attack on the judiciary, and when they start arresting the lawyers and the judges, then the scales have really tipped into fascism. And so that's apparently where we are. That has begun.
So the misdirecting, in other words, because she said go to the chief judge, they said she was sort of giving the immigrant a chance to take off, and he did.
Well, I presume that would be their argument, that was an intentional misdirection, a.k.a. harboring an immigrant. But a lot is required under criminal statutes for harboring to prove, number one, that she knew anything about his status, number two, that she had an intention to hide him or shield him. I mean, this is presumably an adult person who moves his own body according to his own decisions. So, I mean, to me, there's a lot of questions, but even the fact that they would go so far as to, number one, arrest a judge, who's just managing things in her own courtroom, and then number two, tweet out it, and just blast it out as if it's cause for celebration. I think that's the act plus the announcement of it is what is, additionally chilling for me personally.
Right. And the FBI Director, Kash Patel, did tweet out, "We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courtroom. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since, but the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public." This guy was there on a misdemeanor battery charge.
Exactly. Yes, that's what they tweeted, and of course, no evidence that she was harboring. And even if, let's even assume that she did know that this person was undocumented and that she did direct this person to go out one door or even said, "Hey, there's a door over there," while she's saying to the agents, "You need to go talk to my boss." I don't know the protocol. I mean, this is what needs to happen in places of business and, public places, that ICE comes in and the person, let's say it's a restaurant, the hostess at the hostess stand says, "You know what, hang on, I need to go get my boss. You need to talk to the manager." I mean, that is, the courthouse version of go talk to the chief judge. I don't know if you can access my chambers or this courtroom. That's above my pay grade. So for her to say that, meanwhile this man chooses on his own accord to leave, but then they arrest the judge and then they tell everybody about it. It's just really, really concerning.
And what are you seeing from your client base? What is the level of concern, of fear, frankly?
Well, this is breaking. I mean, this has come out in the last couple of hours, so I don't know yet what my clients think about this. I know that it's going around very quickly in the lawyer, in the judicial community. Everybody in the judicial community is very shocked and concerned by this. And it'll be developing. The tweet was deleted right after it was put out by Kash Patel, so that's been revoked. Who knows if she's still in detention, whether she'll be doing press if she gets out about what happened. I mean, this will be very much a developing story, but the initial blink is pretty bad.
And his Homeland Security advisors had said they were going to go after public officials who they felt were hiding or hindering their efforts to sweep up these immigrants. And this, I guess, sends that message. It's their goal, it seems.
Yeah, they want, we know this. They want everyone to stop fighting for due process. They want everyone to get out of their way, and they would like to just pick up, round up, detain, and deport every immigrant without due process. The president tweeted as such last week. He said, "We don't have time to give court hearings to all of these immigrants. That would take too long." So that's what they would like, and then they would like to punish anyone who fights for due process, which is the judiciary. That is lawyers and judges. And that's the great problem of our nation right now, is this battle between the executive branch and the judicial branch. And that's why we're all in such danger.
In his interview with Time, right, and in his interview with Time magazine, he was asked about the court orders requiring the government to facilitate the release of the gentleman who's in custody in El Salvador, and he says, "I leave that to my lawyers. I give them no instructions. I feel that the orders said something very much different than what everybody else is reporting."
Right. I mean, there's a lot of one way and the other way coming out from the president, in that very tweet about saying we can't give due process to immigrants. He happened to also say that he respected the Supreme Court. So, and in that case, in Abrego Garcia's case, he's still in El Salvador, and the Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision that his return must be facilitated. And we're now back down. I say we, I'm not representing him. The case is back down before Judge Zinnes in federal court, who has just this week granted a 1-week extension to the government to demonstrate what they have done to facilitate the return. So we're still in the waiting period on that case.
And does that suggest there's a deal perhaps being made? Some kind of settlement of this?
Hopefully. So for his sake and for the sake of our nation. But it's pretty quiet right now. Nobody knows what's happening.
And as you've seen, the Washington Post reporting today that Trump's immigration ratings have turned negative, that most people are not approving of the aggressive enforcement efforts.
I'm happy to hear that. I mean, this is, it's really bad news for our economy. I think people understand that immigrants are what bolster this nation's economy. 1 in 4 doctors is an immigrant. 1 in 3 entrepreneurs is an immigrant. Half of our home health care workers are immigrants. I mean, it's critical to our nation's success, especially with an aging baby boomer population. And as people start to see not only the economic impact, but the personal impacts. Anybody who knows an immigrant is feeling this pain with them, with their loved ones. And so I hope that the tides have turned, because, the call for cruelty against immigrants has been really loud. It's been a really loud and painful drumbeat in the last few years in this country, and hopefully it will shift.
So the battlefront now is in the courts. What's the success so far for those who are trying to fight the Trump enforcement efforts?
Incredibly strong. The Trump administration and federal courts have received something over 90% of the orders have been against Trump policies. So they are, losing in a resounding way in all of the court cases that they are facing. So thankfully we have organizations, impact litigation organizations like the ACLU out there fighting the fight, and federal judges from Republican to Democratic appointees are issuing injunctions and blocks against illegal and unconstitutional activities.
And as you know, though, Kate, that has led some in the White House, including Steve Miller, to say that just shows you the judges are all communists or leftists.
Yes, that is what they will say, and I think we have to listen to these words when they come out from Stephen Miller and when they come out from Donald Trump and other people in his cabinet, and then it's clear. Then they're telling us what they really want. They want all of the power concentrated in the executive branch, which is a dictatorship, which is exactly what the founders of this nation were fighting against. We were leaving a monarchy. We were creating a republic where the power is in the legislature and the president enforces the laws and the judges interpret the laws, and there's this balance of powers that have kept us safe so that the governed are the rulers, actually, of this nation. And when we hear clear statements coming from our president and his advisors that they don't actually really like the balance of powers or due process, they want power concentrated, we need to pay close attention. And I hope that the people who don't follow mainstream media or shows like this are somehow realizing this at the moment that it is occurring.
So as a practical matter for you, when you get a client, they've been arrested, they fear being arrested, and what can you do?
You can fight their detention in immigration proceedings before an immigration judge, and you can file petitions in federal court. So there's the Department of Justice, the Executive Office for Immigration Review is the immigration court system, and then many of these people are also now filing habeas petitions in federal court as well.
And does that work?
Yeah, it's starting to work. I mean, you know, some of your listeners might have heard about the case of the batch of Venezuelans who were accused of being terrorists under the Alien Enemies Act were on their way to a flight to the detention torture center in El Salvador, CICOT, and the Supreme Court issued a middle-of-the-night decision blocking their removal. And so we're seeing, you know, classes and injunctions pop up around the country stopping the Trump administration from deporting people to, you know, disappearing people into other countries. So it's, you know, the courts are stepping up. The courts are speaking out, and I think what remains to be seen is will the Trump administration listen and follow court orders, or are we going to reach a moment where they will begin to defy them? And arresting a judge is, I think, an indication that things are going in the latter direction, which is one of the reasons it's so concerning.
Right, and they've actually threatened to arrest the governor of New Jersey and others who are talking about sanctuary cities, etc., for obstruction of justice. Finally, let me ask you, is it now the rule of law in this country that membership in a gang without a criminal conviction is enough for deportation? Wearing the wrong baseball hat, a Bulls hat, or having the wrong tattoos is enough to get you thrown out of the country?
No, that is not the law of the land. We are seeing cases where free speech is being targeted, and there's a ground of deportability where someone's activities in the United States could have adverse foreign policy consequences. So, for example, in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, who was a permanent resident, he's still detained in Louisiana. He was arrested without criminal charges under that ground of deportability, and the immigration judge overseeing his case upheld that ground of deportability. And then another permanent resident who was a protester, Madawi, he was arrested at his naturalization interview. So some of that we are seeing, so those grounds apply to permanent residents, but those cases are also in federal court. So not the law of the land, but certainly attempts are being made on the part of DHS and the president.
All right. Well, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, I want to thank you so much for joining us on a very busy news day on your particular patch, huh?
Yes, sure enough.
Indeed. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney.